Oh, I'm hitting the wrong thing.
You're on.
I'm on. I'm on. I don't need this. See, I'm forgetting, you know. It's only 2 weeks. Good morning, all. I'm Felicia Marcus, Chair of the Board. Today is Tuesday, January 6th, 2015, at 9:05 a.m. The meeting's called to order. With me, to my left, Vice Chair Fran Spivey-Weber. To my right, Board Member Stephen Moore, and shortly we'll be joined by Board Member Tam Dodak. Mr. Howard, will you introduce the staff that's assisting us this morning?
Yes, thank you. To my left, Michael Lawford, Chief Counsel. To my right, John Bishop and Karen Turgovich, Chief Deputies. And assisting the board today are Janine Townsend and Courtney Davis. Great.
Good to see everyone. Hope everybody had a good holiday. You all look happy and sort of rested. Yes, you're good. That's good. For those of you who haven't been with us, emergency evacuation procedures are mandatory in this building, so look for the exits nearest you. If you hear an emergency kind of sound, it is one, and grab your stuff and your friends. And we gather in Cesar Chavez Park towards the Citizen Hotel, that end, and if you want to join with us, you'll find out when the all clear to come back is. You're obviously free to go wherever you would like. Other important things are that the meeting is being webcast and recorded. So it becomes very important, even if we can hear you from the podium, that you speak very close to the microphone so that those who are listening over the webcast can hear you and the people in the back of the room can hear you. It may seem obvious, but it's easier said than done, which is why I have to have this thing clipped to my lapel, because I can't do it very well. And the last thing is, please set all of your phones on silent or off during the meeting, just out of courtesy. Our next item is the public forum, but I want to just take a moment to acknowledge and introduce Michael George, our new Delta Watermaster, who's with us this morning. Welcome, Michael. We're delighted to have you. You're turning off your phone. Thank you. That's a good behavior at the beginning of a job. We're thrilled to have you and honored that you would join us, and looking forward to the months and the years ahead. It's going to be great. Now, public forum. And for the first public forum comment of the year, we have Tim O'Laughlin.
Oh, wow. Yay. Starting off
We've
right.
seen a lot of each other this year.
I believe we will. This
Happy
is
New
your
Year.
year, Tim.
This is going to be a great year.
Yeah.
I'll wait for this PowerPoint to pop up. I'm here today to talk. I'm Tim O'Laughlin, representing the San Joaquin Tributaries Authority. This presentation today is on the Stanislaus River watershed, but it's
Right.
applicable to the Tuolumne, the Merced, and the upper San Joaquin. And needless to say, sorry to start the year off on a down note, but this will not be good news. So the average annual rainfall, these are reported values. This goes back about 50 years. Average annual is 37.34 inches of rain in the Stanislaus River Basin at Beardsley.
Mm-hmm.
Which way did we go? Nope. Left? Not going. Okay. So this is the first beginning of the water year, July through December. You'll notice that in these months that were negative numbers. And so when you get to, this thing's not working very well.
It doesn't work very well.
Okay, so average annual to December is normally 12 inches, 12.7 inches. So far this year, we've received 7.25 inches. And if you've noticed, recently it's been dry, and currently it's dry, and it's going to be dry until the middle of January. So this shows you the months of January, February, March, April. And if you look at these, so think about the last slide. We're already 5 inches behind, and now you're going to go halfway through the month of January, and you have to pick up 6 inches, and we're going to be halfway through the month. That leaves us really February and March to play catch-up to try to get to an average annual rainfall events in the watershed. So we're behind, and we're falling further behind. Okay. So let's talk about storage. On October 1st in New Melones, the storage was 520,000 acre feet. December 1st, it was 514,000 acre feet. And in January, it was 548,000 acre feet. Now, that bump at the end is those early rains that we had in December. So when you were north of I-80, you got a lot more precip than if you were south of I-80.
Right.
But if you look, we only received about 34,000 acre feet of total runoff into New Melones in the month of December.
Right, because so much soaked into the ground.
Yes, and it's even worse than that. And you are correct. Okay. I'm going to pay for a new clicker.
Thank you.
I will. Okay, so.
I'm with you.
So we have a 20,000 acre increase in storage from October 1st and 34,000 acre feet from December 1st. Ah, shoot. I have to go back to this slide, sorry. So now you have to look upstream, and one could opine that, you know, we're not seeing all this water into New Melones because we have these upstream reservoirs that are capturing water, and so you would think, well, the upstream reservoirs are getting full, and if the upstream reservoirs are getting full, then maybe we don't have to worry so much about New Melones. So the bad news here, though, is if you look from the October time period through the 1st of January, we had a net decline in storage upstream at the 3 major reservoirs upstream of 51,000 acre feet. You have a perplexed look. So what's happened in the basin overall is we've lost 51,000 acre feet upstream of storage, and we gained 28,000 acre feet of storage in New Melones over the time period for a net loss of 23,000 acre feet in the basin. And that's with
Why is that?
Well, what happens, and we forget about these when we do this, is that New Melones is constantly releasing water from October 1st. So New Melones is releasing water for downstream and in-stream beneficial uses. Plus, they did that October pulse flow
all right.
release, which was 26,000 acre feet. So when you start adding these numbers up, even if it's 250 or 300 CFS over time, so, you know, 250 times 2 is 500 times 30 days is 15,000 acre feet. So this water is constantly being depleted. But the other point you were correct on is that we had, think about it, we had 7.5 inches of rain in the basin, and basically our runoff has been 34,000 acre feet.
Right.
And
Well,
we
that was what was predicted.
yeah, that was what was produced from 7.5 inches. That's roughly 1/5. So in normal terms, that's roughly 1/5 of the rainfall in the total basin, and we normally get roughly 1 million acre feet. So this time, with 1/5 of the 1/5 of the rainfall, we got 34,000.
Right. Right. Because everything was so dry.
Yes. So the other thing that's happened, I don't have the updated numbers, and I'm sorry I didn't put them in. They aren't posted yet. But DWR snow survey came out. The Stanislaus Basin, and we have our own snow pillows up there too. We're running less than 50% of normal to date through the 1st of January. So even if you think, well, wait, you know, most of this water didn't happen as runoff, most of it went to seepage, or even better yet, hopefully we have this magnificent snowpack up there.
No.
Currently,
Didn't
we
go to
don't-
snowpack.
We don't.
No.
So we have been talking to our friends at the United States Bureau of Reclamation. You're probably going to see some actions here shortly. Your staff's probably already informed you that there's a salinity problem at Vernalis right now. So we're probably going to have to look at, I've had some initial discussions with Reclamation about a TUCP. There's probably going to have to be a TUCP as well on the February through June flow requirements. And the reason for that is we have this disconnect that's occurred historically. So you have all this rainfall occurring in the Sacramento River Basin so far, and you have none down here. So when the Sacramento flows are going and the San Joaquin River flows aren't. Sacramento flows to determine the February through June flow requirements, bump the number up. You can't do it. So you're probably going to be looking on a TUCP on that one. You're probably going to be looking at a TUCP on the April-May. Right now, the basin's critical and going south. And then the other thing we're talking to the Bureau about is a DO TUCP for the Stan as well to save some water. Oakdale and South San Joaquin are looking to talk to Reclamation about doing a transfer in the April-May time period if there's water available to assist them with their fishery flows and coming up with some type of fishery pulse flow this year if we can, depending on water availability. So we're working with Reclamation. They're working with DWR. You will probably see more of this in the next 2 weeks or so coming back at you.
It seems to me that this coordination between DWR and Reclamation is critical, is key.
That's true on
I-
the Sacramento, but that's not true on the San Joaquin
Okay.
because they don't
Well,
have
but
anything.
they do,
Yeah.
they connect, right? For salinity and, some of those issues. No?
No.
Not at all.
No, that's why our input, Fran, is into Reclamation, because Reclamation with its facilities on the San Joaquin River system really, with New Melones and their obligations under D1641, kind of drives the equation. The SWP and DWR are really the coordinated operations of Shasta and Oroville and American River and the diversion pumps. And in the way that the San Joaquin is going to fit in this year, which is going to be very interesting, is the Vernalis flow requirements, the EI ratio, and what impacts that may or may not have on export pumping this year.
First order of business.
I just want to mention that one of the items that we're hoping you'll see when the 2015 Drought Operations Contingency Plan is submitted later this month
Right.
is going to be a discussion of operations on the San Joaquin side as well.
Right.
Yes, we are coordinating with the other entities on the San Joaquin River and hope to have a package back to you. Our package is probably going to be a little bit different than the Reclamation package because we actually operate reservoirs that they don't operate, plus with entities on the river with diversions. But we're trying to get together what we believe is a pretty decent operation plan. It'll probably come after they make their submittal to you, and then we'll have our submittal. Because
How
we're not...
much after?
What?
How much after?
Oh, very shortly.
Okay.
I think it'll be very shortly. We'll have a fairly good idea then at the end of the month what we're dealing with as far as your type. Because right now, if it rained, average rainfall for the rest of the year in the San Joaquin River Basin, we did a back of the envelope calculation. If it averaged for the rest of the year, we might hit a dry criteria.
Right.
We might. Anything less than average for the rest of the year,
We're
we're critical.
Yeah.
Again. So that's kind of where so by the end of January, we'll have a fairly good idea about where we are. So we'll come back to you. We're working with the exchange contractors, discussing things with Friant Reclamation and the tributaries, diverters, Patterson, El Soyo, and those folks. So we should have something back to you by the end of the month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, going to be a big year. Our next item is considering the minutes of the December 16th and 17th board meeting. Is there a motion?
I move we adopt the minutes.
I second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are adopted. Mr. Howard, item number 2, please.
Yes, item number 2 is with the Division of Water Rights, consideration of a proposed order denying without prejudice the petition of a number of parties. The proposed order denies the petitions for reconsideration, and presenting the item is Mariana Aoi, and she'll introduce the other staff.
Good morning.
Morning. Thank you, Tom.
Good morning, Chair Marcus and members of the board. My name is Mariana Owie. I'm an attorney in the Office of Chief Counsel. And with me is Michael Buckman, the head of the Hearings Unit in the Division of Water Rights. The proposed order before you arises in the context of the reopening of a proposed cease and desist order hearing against Woods Irrigation Company's diversions from Middle River on Roberts Island. As determined in State Water Board Order 2012-12, the hearing is being reopened for the limited purpose of allowing the landowners within the Woods Irrigation Company to have direct notice and opportunity to participate as parties. Certain landowners in the Woods Irrigation Company service area requested to change the scope of participation that they're being offered from reopening the hearing to restarting the hearing afresh. And the hearing officers denied this request. And some of the landowners petitioned for reconsideration of that decision. The proposed order before you does not address the merits of petitioner's request. Rather, it denies the petition without prejudice because it is premature. Any remaining concerns that petitioners have about their rights can be raised at the end of the hearing process, but the hearing process itself should be allowed to run its course without having interlocutory appeals to the full board that could confuse matters and could end up raising a lot more issues to the full board than will ultimately even affect the parties. The State Water Board received no written comments on the proposed order, and we recommend adoption of the proposed order with two minor changes. The first, on page 1 of the proposed order, there's an incorrect date for the adoption of Order WR 2012-12. It states that was adopted in 2014. That should be changed to 2012. And then on page 3 of the proposed order, the final full paragraph in the second section should be deleted because the order does not address the merits of the petition.
And you might also say when the,
Just trying to find it.
when we're going to be taking up the Woods issue, just for the public to know.
Certainly, certainly. There's a scheduled hearing in June for the Woods Irrigation Company CDO, and there will be a pre-hearing conference on the 15th. The
June?
hear,
No,
sorry,
this month.
of this month, of January. And so the public hearing is scheduled for June 8th, with the potential to continue on for additional days that week if necessary.
I move we adopt this, this order denying without prejudice the petitions of the various parties. With the two changes of date and deletion of the paragraph.
Is it the "it is further worth noting" paragraph?
It's this order addresses paragraph.
Page 3.
So
Oh, page 3, sorry, I was going towards the end.
Page
Okay.
3.
Another way to spot it is it's right above the section heading 3.0
it.
background.
Okay,
So it says this order addresses the
Got it.
principal issues raised. Okay.
great. Do we have any speakers? Oh, okay,
Okay. Well, if there's no speakers, I'll second the motion.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you for your work. Procedural matter there. Thank you. Item number 3. Drought update. Hi, John.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New
We
Year.
really have no updates for the drought update. We are continuing to work on items. Just as Ms. Turkovich mentioned,
You want to start by saying, though, that we're still in a drought, right?
we're still in the drought,
Thank you.
and as Mr. O'Laughlin spoke to, the San Joaquin River conditions are worse than the Sacramento River watershed. But we are expecting to have the contingency plan from the Bureau and the department coming in on January 15th, and we'll have an informational item at the next board meeting.
Right, so we should plan plenty of time for that next board meeting. I know we were going to talk about that agenda. later
Right, and
today.
it's possible that we'll put that on the second day.
Oh, okay. So that we have plenty of time. Good, I don't want to rush that. That'll be big.
That's it.
Great, no enforcement or anything else going on since
We are
last spoke?
considering items at this time,
And that's all you can say,
yes.
because it would be enforcement?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question, and with Mr. O'Laughlin speaking to the conditions of the San Joaquin today, I remember when Mark Cowan was first became in charge of DWR, it was the reverse. Those conditions on the SAC were terrible, and the conditions on the San Joaquin were better. Do we track how frequently there is this mismatch of water supply, from rain or from runoff among the two rivers?
The department closely tracks this, and the conditions that you're talking about might be related to snowfall. I'm not sure of the
It
sample that
was,
you're giving.
yeah, I can't remember. I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah.
But they do track the precipitation and the snowfall, and and the runoffs expected from both of those items.
Okay. So they do it. We don't.
Well, this is relatively common that there's a variable hydrology between the
Right.
San Joaquin and the Sacramento.
It-
And that's why the Water Board years ago established 2 separate indices, hydrologic indices, one for the Sacramento Basin and one for the San Joaquin Basin. And if we look historically, you'll often see that those indices are not the same in any particular year. In fact, probably they're more often not the same than they are the same. And so my point is just that this is not uncommon. It's actually quite common.
Nature,
Okay.
not predictable. Thank you very much, John. Next, item number 4.
We have comment cards for 3.
Oh, we have comment cards for 3. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that. Sorry about that. Great. Happy to hear from people. That helps. First, Philip Williams. Mr. Williams, good to see you. From Westlands Water District, and he'll be followed by John Rubin from the San Luis and Delta Mendota Water Authority. Good to see you both.
Thank you. Good morning,
Hi,
Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Williams.
members of the
Good.
board. My name is Philip Williams.
Close
I
to
thought I
the-
had done that right. My name is Philip Williams. I serve as a Deputy General Counsel at Westlands Water District. More importantly, I'm also a father, much like many other people in this room. A fact that is not lost on me as I look outside and see a rather familiar weather pattern emerging, and one that should give all of us in this room pause and perhaps some discomfort. The impacts of last year's drought are cumulative. I mean, it's important to recognize that they are
That's a
cumulative.
good way to put it.
And as we enter 2015, that we appreciate the baseline that we're starting from. Westland's allocation history in 2014, we received a 0%. The year before that, it was 20%. 20% actually sounds pretty good, given 0%. The reality is if you expected to receive $1 from me and you only got 20 cents, you wouldn't really think that was a very good deal, especially given the following year getting no cents, the next year not really sure what you're going to receive. Water transfers, last year our farmers paid around $2,000 an acre foot for water. Groundwater. Farmers who had them turned to groundwater wells. But without sufficient surface water to blend with that groundwater, crop yields were down 20%.
Because of the quality.
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Because of the quality. I'm
Yes,
just
ma'am.
helping
Because of the
people who are
quality,
listening.
thank you, yes. Yeah, the poor
they understand why.
groundwater quality. Under our groundwater management plan at Westlands, which is a very good program, pumping through November of 2014 was about 192,000 acre feet which is about 1.8 times the historical average. In Westland's entire service area, we pumped about 640,000 acre-feet of groundwater last year and expect to pump more this year. Land fallowing. We fallowed 220,000 acres of prime agricultural farmland. Communities. A new study by UC Davis estimates that the drought will cost California agricultural industry about $1.5 billion. Lost jobs. Unemployment in the San Joaquin Valley is 3 to 5% higher than the statewide average of 7%. But water transfer costs and cost per acre foot, land fallowing, it's all rather abstract. What is less abstract, our sheriffs have written letters relating the rise in gang-related crime as our desperate youth in the San Joaquin Valley turn to violence. Our clergy have written letters about the increased pressure on social and welfare programs as parents who have always been able to provide are forced to stand in food lines. Violence and hunger are not abstractions. Desperation is not an abstraction. And this is the baseline that Westlands enters into 2015 with. Now, last year, we learned that we have some challenges ahead of us. We have a clear legal regime in California that protects senior users of water who put that water to reasonable beneficial use. That same regime ensures that our rivers no longer catch fire. But when there was not enough water to go around, we learned very painfully that we lacked the tools we need to enforce that regime in a way that comports with fundamental notions of due process. We learned that we don't have the information we need. Does a water user have a riparian right? A pre-1914 right? A license to appropriate? Something else? All of the above. Is the year of first use 1800 or 1899 or sometime in the 19th century? Where is the support for that assertion? And how much water is being diverted? And why don't we know? Is it really not locally cost effective to measure diversions? Now, we all knew how bad last year was going to be and that it would require the very best from all of us. And we, myself and Westlands, want to applaud this body and your staff for wading directly into that fight. John Rubin and I have spent an enormous amount of time the past year, and I anticipate we will continue to spend more time trying to create tools for you and your staff to better do your job so we can improve the way we do things in 2015. Now, despite the fact that I work for Westlands Water District and therefore cannot be trusted, I want you all to know that Westlands and myself, we truly do want to help you do your job in 2015. An Iraqi Mukhtar taught me years ago that liberty and justice do not mean very much if you don't have water for your people to drink or water to grow your crops and feed your people with. And I did not leave the Army to sabotage the California water rights regime. I left the Army and chose to serve because I thought it would be a more meaningful capacity here. Part of that is that I hope my son and my daughter will experience the same blessings that we all in this room have been able to experience. And I hope you allow us to continue to work with you and your staff. I look forward to a very challenging and robust 2015. Pending any of your questions, ma'am.
No, thank you, Mr. Williams. I think you've touched on all the items. It is the year of information, and we learned a lot last year, and we have our work cut out for us this year, and really look forward to working with you on that, and with Mr. George as well, added to our team.
Thank you.
We'll be spending a lot of time together this year.
Good morning, Chair Marcus, members of the board. My name is John Rubin. Pleasure to speak to you in this new year. You heard from Mr. Williams about the impacts, the need for information to allow for proper administration of water rights. That need does continue today. There was some discussion earlier this morning about conditions in the San Joaquin Valley. Conditions in the Sacramento Valley are slightly better. It's obviously a relative comparison. The Central Valley Project, State Water Project reservoirs are in the Sacramento Valley are at higher levels today than they were last year. But that doesn't mean we're out of a drought. or out of emergency conditions, the situation remains dire. And particularly for members of the San Luis Delta Mendota Water Authority. Outflow, high due to the early storms, is falling. There are no storms predicted in the 10 to 14-day forecasts. If the same policy decisions that have been made in the past are made this year, the Water Authority members will be disproportionately impacted by drought conditions. Those policy decisions, many of which involve discretionary actions by you and other state, federal agencies, have the Water Authority members bracing for significant shortages in surface water. And those impacts that they're bracing for will likely be felt even if there is moderate precipitation. You heard from Mr. Williams from Westlands Water District, other agricultural water service contractors anticipate a zero allocation again this year. And it's unlikely that zero allocation will go much higher even under average precipitation conditions. Mr. Williams talked about the baseline, the circumstances that Westlands is entering into this next year. Westlands, like other water users south of the Delta, are moving into this year with less resources to deal with shortages. The availability of supplemental supplies through transfers is likely going to be reduced if conditions remain dry. Groundwater resources will likely be depleted, and the availability of groundwater as a supplemental supply will also be limited. And also, sometimes forgotten, with the continued drought, the financial resilience of those south of the Delta that are suffering from drought is also impaired. Within that context, and the context that Mr. Williams provided to you, I remind the State Board of the importance of water to those served by the San Luis Delta Mendota Water Authority. And we'll try to highlight for you the importance of even small quantities of water, relatively small quantities of water. And so as an example, I'll use 1,000 acre-feet of water and remind you that 1,000 acre-feet of water is a supply that is sufficient to meet the needs of, at a minimum, 500 families. 1,000 acre-feet of water is enough water to meet the wintering waterfowl habitat of 1,000 acres. 1,000 acre-feet of water is enough to meet the annual needs for waterfowl within 500 acres of land. And statistics that are often not presented to you, 1,000 acre-feet of water is sufficient to grow cantaloupes that will provide 200,000 servings of that fruit. And it gets staggering when you look at some other crops. 1,000 acre-feet of water provides 27 million servings of grapes. 1,000 acre-feet of water provides 60 million servings of lettuce, assuming for those statistics 3 acre-feet of water per acre. So even very small quantities of water is very meaningful, not only to the farmers, the communities, the refuges that depend upon that water, but the state of California, the nation. I turn now back to you, the State Water Board. The Water Board has the authority to take actions that will minimize harm to the Water Authority members. You have the authority to improve the ability of those that are served by Water Authority members to provide the benefits to the communities that those water users serve. to provide the food, to provide water for people and the environment. I also remind you that the exercise of that authority does involve some discretion and involves balancing of interests. And as Mr. Williams offered to you, the Water Authority has and will continue in this new year to work with you and your staff to ensure that you have a comprehensive understanding of the importance of water, the impacts of drought within the communities served by the Water Authority. So with that, I'm available to answer any questions.
No, thank you for all the time you've put in, and thank you for coming this morning, both you and Mr. Williams, as well as Mr. O'Loughlin. I think it's important to start off the year with a sober assessment of the impacts and the situation that we're in, particularly since so many people see a lot of rain and think it must be over, and it's not. And it's particularly fitting as we return to our duties to be centered on that. And I know we're going to be spending a lot of time with you in the months and the weeks and months to come, and I think we've all been doing an awful lot of thinking about it too. We didn't really take much of a break over the holidays, having done a workshop on urban water conservation in the middle of December, and it's a perfect opening to our next item, because frequently in the urban context, people actually don't realize that comparative value of water in terms of what it yields in agriculture, and there's a false dichotomy between the two. But I know we're heavily motivated in our urban water conservation by being mindful of what the pressures on ag are in our state, and in particular the pressures in the Central Valley.
Thank you.
I appreciated those very tangible examples, and the work that you all did to prepare for these remarks. And I echo the chair's emphasis that Californians must be reminded of the water situation, and that one flash in the pan doesn't solve a problem that's years in the making. One thing, you don't have to provide the answer now, but you mentioned in your remarks that there were policy decisions by this body and others that, if replicated in 2015, could lead to harm. And so, I encourage your active participation in these discussions, because I want to reassure everyone, just as one board member, our commitment to continuous improvement. That when we didn't have all the answers going in last year, we worked and fostered collaboration, which I think is critical. But when we speak of a good critical assessment of our actions and then what resulted from them, we're open to hearing on how we can fine-tune this. And I appreciate the emphasis too on the importance of good information, and how that can, I believe that's our guiding light in terms of moving forward this year, is improving our information gathering and the use of that in our management and our goals of balancing all the critical uses that are supported by our precious water resources. So, do you have any examples you want to provide as far as, some, rather than generalities, some ideas on how we can fine-tune our policy decisions?
Board Member Moore, there's many examples. I would prefer that we take you up on that opportunity, respond to your question at a later date. They're very technical, detailed issues that we can explore when we have some additional time.
No, I appreciate that. I realize that. So just wanted to, indicate our commitment to work together as Californians to really to address the challenge that's before us.
And we greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, we hope it rains more continuously, but not so much as to hurt anybody. But good, we want more rain. But if not, we obviously want to improve any way we can. We learned a lot last year.
We need rain, and we need the ability to move water to those areas where there's demands.
Great, thank you very much. Good way to open. Item number 4. You couldn't have ordered a better proceeding set of comments, could you?
Right. There is, the drought is still happening, right?
Item number 4 is an update on the water conservation regulations, and Rafael Mayatsu will be doing the presentation, and he'll introduce the other staff.
Janine, does anybody have an extra copy of your slides on you?
No.
Do you mind? Okay, sorry. I just want to be able to write on it. Thank you, Karen. Oh, that's okay.
So, good morning, Chair Marcus and members of the board.
Good morning.
So, my name is Rafael Maestro. I work in the Office of Research Planning and Performance. With me today is Mark Emerson in the Division of Drinking Water, and Carlos Mejia from the Office of Chief Counsel. So we are here today to introduce you to the November water conservation results. This is our 6 month of reporting. And we will be discussing trends, highlights, and compliance with the mandatory requirements. So we've been collecting data now for 6 months, and we're going to be presenting you the data through November. We're also going to be talking about some of the compliance actions that we are taking. And I want to mention that the emergency regulations will expire in April 2015. So
That's
we
right,
have a
if
few
we
months
don't
left.
re-up it.
So we've been very successful in collecting the data from the water suppliers. We have a great participation. We now have identified a list of 411 retail urban water suppliers that have to comply with the emergency regulations. And 388 reported the numbers as of January 2nd. We still have 13 that didn't provide information in most cases because the information was not available for them, but we expect that information to get back to us.
Is that largely because they're on a different, I remember you saying that some of them are just on a different cycle for
Correct.
getting there, so our deadline doesn't mesh with their deadline.
Exactly. I mean,
so do they tend to turn it in 2 weeks later?
We see, as you can see, the previous months, we are collecting data from previous months now. So you see there's only 3 left from September and 5 left from October. And we are following up on those. So the first thing we want to address is the mandatory restrictions. We have now 93% of the water suppliers who are imposing mandatory outdoor irrigation mandatory restrictions. We are following up on those 28. The list is now actually the most updated information I have is that we have now only 19 that are pending to impose mandatory restrictions. And we are following up with enforcement actions and letters. The Office of Enforcement submitted a letter on, I think it was last month, with a due date tomorrow. So we have already received 19 responses from those 37 letters that we sent.
Let me just jump in here as a flag to both you guys as well as to fellow board members. It came to my attention that when we say mandatory restrictions, I know we were thinking that it would be mandatory restrictions on time of use or dates or whatever of outdoor watering. This is not uniform among all water agencies in terms of, they have mandatory restrictions, no doubt about that, but it does not always apply to restrictions on the number of days or the time of use. And so the request that I got from an agency that has this situation is we should be explicit, super clear. If we mean reduction in days of watering, we should say that. And if we mean simply the mandatory restrictions that are in their drought plan, then we get what we got. Now, we have not been able, as I understand it, to make a correlation between restricted days and saving water, which is, kind of an interesting phenomena. So anyway, I just want to make sure that is brought up now, so that as we start to move forward, we have that in mind, because
Isn't that a piece of the thinking, and when you all will come back to us with suggestions at our next meeting, based on what we heard at the workshop, the whole notion of tuning up our regs? I mean, the whole intention was to subsidiary, to say, you guys did these plans, implement them. But we are finding that some are more equal than others, as they say. So trying to figure out if we should step in and put a different baseline on seems worth thinking about.
Yeah, that was one of the issues that was brought at the workshop last month.
That's right, yeah. The more granular look at what mandatory restrictions are in these different plans, and if we can kind of group them, you know, and sort through that a bit to see a real meaningful outcome of those restrictions in terms of
That is information
water
that-
reduction.
Yeah, that's information that we are not currently collecting, and maybe that's one of the things that we need to recommend, or
Yeah.
start collecting exactly what does it mean, the mandatory restrictions.
It's a great point to bring up. Thanks.
So this is the trend of the conservation, or actually the water production for every one of the months that we've been tracking the data. As you can see, we saw an increase during the months during the summer months, and now we are seeing now that the numbers are going down as expected during the winter months, especially the months of October and November, that we see some rain. But what is important is the difference between the 2013 and 2014, and that is highlighted in this graph. So we conserve 9.5 billion gallons of water in June, 18.23 in July, 27.65. It went down to 12.96 in October, and now we actually conserve 14.89. We're going up
So
again.
that's how much less water was used month
Correct.
over
That's
month.
the water that's been saved, basically
Right.
conserved. And so during all this period that we've been tracking the data, we have conserved 105 billion gallons of water, which is approximately 322,000 acre-foot of water. That's, I don't want to speculate, but it's probably around 1.5 million, water enough for 1.5 million Californians for a year. So that's a very positive
Right. Can you go
result.
back to the last slide, just for folks who are watching? So, I mean, there's so many different things that we have to be mindful of as we look at it. So it also shows you, it'd be nice to do and I'm sure you could do this, a graph of the whole year, of a whole year's worth of water, so people can see the natural. I mean, this is why we focused on outdoor irrigation, because it was clear that there's a lot of extra water being used outdoors, and we knew people were using more than they needed, overwatering lawns, et cetera, dealing with turf they might not have thought about having. But what we're talking about here, so November, people are using less water anyway, but even so, they used even less. And the question would be on folks' minds, it's good, I'm thrilled the numbers are up, that's always a good thing, whether that's because folks are trying harder or because it was cooler, so they didn't feel the need to water. There's no way to know really other than anecdotally,
There is
right?
no way to know, especially because, I mean, it's important to track the data monthly. That's what we've seen. I mean,
Right.
the annual averages is not enough because of the fluctuations. And we don't have a full year of data
Right,
yet.
right.
We probably will have that information by April or by June. But it's important to track the maximum and minimums, that variability. But what is interesting is that for every month, we were using less water.
Yeah.
So
That is
somehow our water conservation efforts were actually working.
And I would say, and this is a question, not only do you think we not only need a full year, but we need multiple years because we have multiple conditions in those years. And so for looking forward in terms of common practice, we will be needing to gather that information over multiple years in order to make, good planning decisions.
Absolutely, and we are comparing the data with 2013 as a baseline. I'm not sure if that's the right, reference year to use.
Yeah, it's just the value of it is it's the year people most recently remember. I mean, you can talk about all the reasons in the hydrology, but it's like to ask people to go back and remember what it was like in 2012 or 2011, if it's a theoretical ideal or it isn't pragmatic. Think about the behaviors that people have, but I think one of the things we need to be gearing toward and why I almost want to see a chart with the blues from 2013 through the next set of months, and so we know what our target is. Because what we really want is we want to make sure that when we hit April, May, June, when it starts getting warmer, that those numbers stay low and they don't go back up again.
Correct, and then we know what to.
Because, for example, you're going to get to the residential gallons per capita per day. Those numbers are way down this month, but it's normally a lower month. So people shouldn't rest on their laurels on their numbers because they're likely to go up when it gets warmer again. So that's where we're going to need the full year of expectation.
So we can request that information from the urban water agencies that report to us.
Yeah.
Our regulations are for month 2013 to
right.
14 reporting in the regulations. But we can certainly